September 2025, Aaron Rodgers walked into MetLife Stadium wearing Pittsburgh Steelers black and gold. The same stadium where 2 years earlier, he'd torn his Achilles 4 plays into what was supposed to be the greatest Jets season in a generation. The boos from the crowd were loud. His response was louder. He completed 22 of 30 passes, 4 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. And when it was done, Pittsburgh had held on 34-32, a 7-lead change game that came down to a 60-yard field goal with barely a minute left. And when reporters asked him how it felt to beat his former team, he didn't hesitate. He said he was happy to beat everybody associated with the Jets. Not the team, everybody associated with the team. That's not a football quote, that's a verdict. And here's the thing, Aaron Rodgers had been delivering that verdict for 2 full years before anyone actually listened. Today, we're going to look at how Aaron Rodgers told the New York Jets exactly what was wrong, exactly what needed to change, and exactly what would happen if they ignored him. They ignored him. And now, an organization that was supposed to be a Super Bowl contender has gone 3-14, fired a head coach mid-season, fired a general manager mid-season, traded away Sauce Gardner, and is paying $48 million in dead cap money to 2 quarterbacks who aren't even on the roster. Rodgers was right. The Jets just refused to listen. To understand how we got here, you have to go back to January 2024. The Jets had just finished 7-10 for the second consecutive season. Rodgers had played 4 snaps. The offense had been historically bad without him, and instead of quiet reflection, Rodgers stood in front of reporters and did something no one in that building wanted to hear. He told them the truth. The bull that has nothing to do with winning needs to get out of the building, he said. Anything in this building that we're doing individually or collectively that has nothing to do with real winning needs to be assessed. It's not a half the time thing. It's not a sometimes thing. It's not a most of the time thing. It's an every time thing. That quote went around NFL Twitter for about 48 hours before people moved on. And here's what made that moment so easy to dismiss. Rodgers himself was the biggest distraction in the building. The same week he was calling for organizational focus, he'd just spent his McAfee appearance implying that Jimmy Kimmel might appear in the Epstein documents. He'd missed mandatory minicamp for a trip to Egypt. He'd turned a press conference into a weekly TV show. So when Aaron Rodgers stood up and said this organization has a focus problem, everybody laughed. Everybody said the same thing. That's rich coming from him. And in doing so, everybody missed the point entirely. Here's the thing about Aaron Rodgers in January 2024. He was the most famous, most powerful, most untouchable person at One Jets Drive. He was a 4-time MVP, a future Hall of Famer. He'd just come back from an Achilles tear in record time. Owner Woody Johnson was openly in awe of him, which is exactly why what he was saying should have carried more weight, not less. But the media framing made it impossible for anyone to take it seriously. The narrative was simple. Rodgers is a conspiracy theorist who goes on TV every week to cause drama. He's the distraction. He's the chaos. The Jets don't have a culture problem. The Jets have an Aaron Rodgers problem. ESPN beat reporters called his comments ironic. Sports talk radio laughed it off. Even some Jets players seemed confused. Pro Bowl cornerback Sauce Gardner said during that same stretch that the team had lost track of some things, and media interpreted that as a swipe at the noise surrounding Rodgers, rather than a reflection of organizational dysfunction. And Woody Johnson, the owner, made the clearest statement of all. He kept Robert Saleh. He kept Joe Douglas. He locked in the same staff, the same structure, the same culture that Rodgers had just publicly identified as broken. The message from the top of the organization was explicit. We don't have a culture problem. We just need Aaron Rodgers healthy. So that was the consensus heading into 2024. Rodgers would come back. The talent was there. The defense was elite. The Jets were going to be one of the best teams in the AFC. The analysts had it all figured out. But here's what Rodgers understood that the analysts didn't. He'd spent 18 years in Green Bay. He'd seen what a functioning NFL organization looks like from the inside. And what he saw at One Jets Drive was the opposite. He watched the owner fire a head coach after 5 games of the 2024 season. He watched a building where, in his own words, things were leaking out, where information about roster decisions, quarterback situations, and internal conversations was reaching the media before players even knew about them. When that gets figured out, it'll be a little easier to win, he said on McAfee in late November November 2024. It has an impact on the culture and the chemistry and the overall energy of the building, and that's what needs to get better. He'd been saying a version of this since January. Nobody built a segment around it. Nobody ran the headline. Rodgers identifies systemic dysfunction at One Jets Drive. Instead, they ran, Rodgers complains about leaks. Because the easier story was always that Rodgers was the problem. And there was another thing Rodgers understood that the numbers couldn't show. He understood Woody Johnson. Johnson had owned the Jets since 2000. In that time, the organization had fired Herm Edwards, fired Eric Mangini, fired Rex Ryan, fired Todd Bowles, fired Adam Gase, and now fired Robert Saleh, 5 games into a season. He'd watched 3 separate Jets head coaches have their authority quietly stripped while Johnson's inner circle made decisions. And he'd seen how the moment things got hard, they looked for a person to blame instead of a system to fix. Rodgers had seen that pattern. He'd lived inside it. When he said the bullshit needed to get out of the building in January 2024, he wasn't talking about social media distractions. He was talking about the way that franchise made decisions. He was talking about the owner. By mid-2024, something shifted in how Rodgers talked about the Jets. The fire was still there. The quotes were still sharp, but there was something underneath them that felt different. In a December 2024 McAfee appearance, when asked about whether the Jets might just release him after the season, Rodgers didn't push back the way you'd expect a 4-time MVP to push back. I think there's a world where they just say, hey, thank you, we're going to go in another direction on January 6th, he said. That's a possibility. And then, a few weeks later, he described the Jets organization as having something like a curse, referencing the decades-long pattern of importing aging quarterbacks and watching everything fall apart. This team, this organization, is going to figure out how to get over the hump at some point, he said. Not we, not us. This team, this organization. He was already distancing himself from the outcome. The man who had arrived in New York talking about Super Bowls, who had fallen in love with the city and the team during his Achilles rehab, who had told reporters this was never going to be a one-year thing. That man was now shrugging about whether they'd even want him back, because he'd seen enough. He'd watched Woody Johnson fire his head coach after 5 games of a 2-2 season. He'd watched a GM get fired in the middle of a season without warning. He'd watched the team crumbling from the inside. Every single thing he'd warned about in January had come true. He just couldn't say it out loud yet. The Jets finished 2024 at 5-12. To put that in perspective, in 2023, without Rodgers for 99.6% of offensive snaps, with the Jets cycling through multiple quarterbacks just to survive the season, they went 7-10. With a 4-time MVP, an elite defense, Davante Adams arriving mid-season, and a full offseason of preparation, they won fewer games. Woody Johnson fired Robert Saleh after Week 5. He fired Joe Douglas 6 weeks later. He kept Rodgers. And then, after all of that, he let Rodgers walk. The Jets moved to Justin Fields. 2 years, $40 million. And the projection models at the time, the same ones that never saw the Jets' organizational dysfunction coming, projected Fields would improve their playoff odds. They did not improve. The 2025 New York Jets went 3-14. They lost their first 7 games of the season. They finished with one of the worst records in the NFL that year. Their offense was historically bad. Against the Broncos, they put up -10 net passing yards. That is not a typo. -10. Fields got benched mid-season. Sauce Gardner got traded. The franchise was bleeding from every direction. And the Jets ended 2025 extending the NFL's longest active playoff drought. Now 15 consecutive seasons without a postseason appearance. 15 years. Meanwhile, Aaron Rodgers, the distraction, the chaos agent, the man who Woody Johnson reportedly wanted to release after 2 disappointing seasons, was in Pittsburgh doing what Aaron Rodgers does. He threw for 3,322 yards with the Steelers in 2025. 24 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 65.7% completion rate. He led them to the AFC North title and the playoffs. And in a hard-fought wildcard round, he and the Steelers were competing, doing exactly what he'd told the Jets he was still capable of doing. The same quarterback they'd let go because the new regime decided it was time to move on. Here's the thing the Jets never understood about Aaron Rodgers. They hired him for the wrong reason. When the Jets traded for Rodgers in April 2023, the entire calculation was talent. 4-time MVP, elite arm, proven system. Plug him in, add it to the defense they'd already built, and compete. But that's not how winning organizations work. And and Rodgers knew it. What Rodgers kept trying to tell them, in January, in interviews, in the McAfee appearances everyone dismissed as drama, was that talent without structure is just expensive chaos. He'd seen it from the other side. Green Bay had structure. Green Bay had process. When you have that, a quarterback can focus on football. In New York, the quarterback couldn't focus on football because the GM didn't know the head coach was being fired, because information was leaking out of the building before players knew what was happening. Rodgers processed defensive schemes faster than almost anyone who ever played the game. But the Jets didn't need a quarterback who could read a defense. They needed a quarterback who could survive an organization that was fighting itself. Those are two different problems. And for 2 years, everyone measured the Rodgers experiment by the first one: completion percentage, passer rating, yards per attempt. Nobody was measuring the second one. Nobody asked, can this organization hold itself together long enough for any quarterback to succeed? The answer, as it turned out, was no. The 2025 Jets, with a young quarterback, a new head coach, a new GM, and none of the drama, went 3-14. That's not a Rodgers problem. That's not a Fields problem. That's a Jets problem. September 2025, Week 1. Pittsburgh Steelers at New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers walked into MetLife Stadium for the first time since he'd left. The crowd booed. The cameras were everywhere. Every sports network had a segment about the revenge game. And then he just played football. 22 of 30, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. Pittsburgh won 34-32 on a last-second 60-yard field goal. Not a blowout, a statement. When it was over and reporters asked him how it felt, he didn't pause. He didn't search for the diplomatic answer. He said he was happy to beat everybody associated with the Jets. Not some of them, everybody. That quote was everywhere within the hour. Jets fans were furious. Media figures called it classless. The same analysts who had spent 2 years dismissing his warnings about organizational dysfunction were now lining up to talk about how his attitude was a problem. They were measuring the wrong thing again, because the story wasn't Rodgers twisting the knife. The story was what he'd left behind: a franchise in freefall, a 15-year playoff drought, a quarterback situation so unstable they'd burned $48 million in dead cap money on 2 quarterbacks who weren't even on the team anymore, an owner who'd fired 2 coaches in the same season and still hadn't fixed the problem. Everything Rodgers said the organization needed to address in January 2024, the focus, the leaks, the decision-making structure, the that had nothing to do with winning. None of it had been addressed because they never listened to him. They heard a distraction. They saw a quarterback who was getting old. They looked at the 5-12 record and decided the problem was Aaron Rodgers. The 3-14 season told the real story. The Jets didn't have an Aaron Rodgers problem. They had the exact problem Aaron Rodgers warned them about. Here's the lesson the NFL never wants to learn. You can have the most talented quarterback in the history of your franchise. You can have an elite defense. You can have Pro Bowl weapons, and it will mean absolutely nothing if the organization making decisions above the quarterback's room is broken. Aaron Rodgers understood something that Woody Johnson never did. Culture isn't a slogan you put on a wall at team headquarters. Culture is what happens when the owner stays out of the coaching staff's business. Culture is what happens when the GM knows his coach is being fired before it's announced to the press. Culture is what happens when the building has one focus, and everything that has nothing to do with winning gets assessed and removed. The Jets never built that. They bought talent and called it a rebuild. They plugged in legends and called it a plan. Brett Favre couldn't fix it in 2008. Rodgers couldn't fix it in 2023 and 2024. And Justin Fields couldn't fix it in 2025. Because the problem was never the quarterback. Rodgers knew that. He said it in January 2024, when the building still smelled like failure from the season before. He said it across McAfee appearances that everyone watched for entertainment and no one watched for information. He said it in the subtext of every quote about leaks, focus, and organizational standards. He was right. He was right about the culture. He was right about the decision-making. He was right about what happens when an NFL organization refuses to address its own structural dysfunction and just keeps swapping quarterbacks and hoping nobody notices. The Jets noticed. 3 wins in 2025 will do that. And somewhere in Pittsburgh, Aaron Rodgers already knew. Drop it in the comments. Is Woody Johnson the worst owner in the NFL right now? Or is there someone worse? Hit subscribe and check one of these out next.